You're listening to the Vari Longmuir Podcast, episode number 7. Welcome to the Vari Longmuir Podcast, and as you may have guessed, I'm your host, Vari. Since stepping away from the 9-to-5 world back in 2009, I've been a creative director, illustrator, artist, business mentor, and coach to fellow creative types. The intention with this podcast is to offer a fresh perspective about what it really means to be a working creative, offer you simple strategies to add a little more joy to your days, and my own insights and lessons learned, often the hard way, from over a decade of being my own boss. Now let's get into today's episode. Hi guys, and welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about how to make decisions. One of the most common problems that my clients have is that they feel stuck in decision paralysis. They have a decision to make either in their personal life or in their business, but they just can't seem to decide on the best option for them. They can spend days and months, even years, going around and around in circles because they just don't know what they think they have to know in order to make the quote-unquote right decision. This can play out in a few different ways. From a business perspective, it might be confusion around what course to take. There may be a few options of further study or courses that are going to help someone in their business and they are confused about which one to take. Also, I see in business a lot where people are confused and indecisive about which platform to use or which software package to use. Tech issues can be a real point of indecision with a lot of people. And it can also be things that seem more trivial, but we can also be equally as indecisive about them. It might be things like where to go on holiday this year. And even within that, there can be indecisions about where do we go? How long do we go for? What flight do we take? What hotel do we stay in? What Airbnb do we go to? There's so many decisions to make even in that one subject. It can also be things like what to have for dinner. Again, what time to have dinner? Do we go out or do we stay in? Do we order takeaway? There's so many decisions to make that often we just feel powerless to actually make the right decision. So we stay in indecision and often do nothing. Here's the thing. Indecision is an indulgent emotion. Now let's go into that a little bit further. Some of the most common indulgent emotions are things like worry, things like feeling confused, and also feeling overwhelmed. What I want to offer you is the idea that all of these indulgent emotions are completely optional. We think that it's what's going on in our lives that's causing us to experience these emotions of confusion and worry and overwhelm. But it's because of how we're choosing to interpret these situations that are happening in our life. It's the thoughts that we're having about them that's actually the cause of the worry or the confusion. Let's take a little look at worry. Worry is a really interesting indulgent emotion because often it's not even about us. We worry a lot of the time about what someone else in our life is doing or not doing. We make their actions and decisions be a source of worry for us. And if you're a parent, you can recognise this with your kids. We often endlessly worry about what our kids are doing or not doing. What's fascinating is that worry about someone else does not help them at all. It only causes discomfort within us. Sure, it can feel kind and loving and considerate, but it's not serving you or serving them to indulge in this worry. Now let's look at confusion. If you've ever said the words, "I just don't know," or I'm not good at that. Or one that I get a lot from creative business owners is when they tell me, oh, I'm just not a tech kind of person. If you've ever said any of these things, then you've indulged in confusion. Now, these phrases seem innocent enough from the outside, but they're actually really powerful. Choosing to believe statements like these closes down any opportunity to learn something. When we say things like, I'm just not tech savvy, then we're indulging in this confusion. What we're actually saying to ourselves and to the universe is, I'm not able to work this out, or I'm not capable of this. If you're stuck in decision paralysis over something at the moment, then take a minute to have a look at other areas of your life. Is this something that's playing out in other ways? My guess is that it's most likely showing up in different ways, because the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And if this is the case, don't beat yourself up about it. It's completely normal to do this. Our human brain likes to follow patterns and to do what it's always done. We've unknowingly trained our brain to believe that these indulgent emotions are important. But it's not all bad news, because if we've trained our brains to believe that these emotions are important, then we can train them to believe something new. We can train our brain to be more decisive and be better at making decisions. Here are some ways you might have indulged in indecision. They may be minor things, as we said before about dinner plans. How often have you said to your partner or to your friends that you don't know where to go for dinner, you don't know what to have, you don't know whether to go out or whether to stay in? Dinner plans can be the source of a lot of indecision. Also things like sitting down to watch Netflix. How many hours have you spent scrolling through that screen with thousands of options, but never actually choosing one? And after 10 or 15 minutes of just endlessly scrolling, you haven't made a decision and you end up just switching the TV off. Also things like what to wear in the morning. I know this is something that I often indulged in indecision about, was what to wear, and would change a white t-shirt 3 or 4 times before actually deciding on which one to wear. These seem like small, irrelevant things, but it's strengthening that muscle, that part of our brain that is indulging in these indecisions and taking up so much time and energy in our days. Some more major examples of indulging in indecision might be around things like, do you want to get married or not married, or stay married? Do you want to have that second kid? Do you want to leave your job and go all in on that side hustle that you're really passionate about? Indulging emotions make us powerless in our own lives. We're saying that we're not able to make a decision for ourselves, so we just don't do it. We don't take responsibility for our own lives. These indulgent emotions feel important, but they're really not. What if you just decided that the option that you chose today was the best and perfect option for you right now? What if you just decided and then never wavered from that choice? What would happen would be that you would actually get to participate in your life immediately. You would start to show up and be present in your life and take control of the things that you are creating in your life today. It would mean that you would have more time and energy to focus on other things. Believe me, this indecision has been taking up so much of your time and energy. If you no longer had to consider over something, then you would be able to use that time and energy for something far more productive than worry or overwhelm or confusion. You could have more meaningful and fun conversations with your friends and family. If you have been indulging in indecision, you've most likely had this conversation with at least 10 people in your life about not knowing which one to choose or which road to go down. This would allow you to dedicate your focus to creating more art, to taking that trip, to having more fun with your friends and family. When I look back at my own life of times when I was stuck in decision paralysis, what seemed like a huge, overwhelming life or death decision back then is barely relevant today. And it's so interesting to look back on that. Even decisions that have completely changed the path that my life was taking don't seem as big or heavy now because I just chose to believe it was the right thing to do. Because I chose to view it in that way. I decided on purpose that it didn't matter which option I actually chose, but whichever it was, I was going to believe that that was the perfect option for me. Now, here's an important point to note. This approach to decision making is not about lying to ourselves or pretending. It's not about saying one thing and feeling another. You don't want to be out for lunch with your friends and telling them about how excited you are to be handing your notice in at your corporate job and starting your own thing. And then you go home and cry to yourself with a tub of ice cream on the sofa because you're deep in regret and fear about your decision. This is doubly indulgent. It's not about armouring up and proclaiming to everyone you meet that you've got #no regrets. It's about being more playful with your life. It's about acknowledging that there is a decision to be made, making it, and then moving forward. There's no blame, no judgment, no playing the victim, just facing forward with ease and a sense of curiosity about what's next for you. As you know, I'm a big fan of practical, easy solutions. So if you're feeling stuck, give this a try. Take a coin and assign option 1 of your decision to heads and option 2 in your decision to tails. Now flip the coin and see what you get. Did you get a pang of disappointment when it landed on heads? Then there's your answer. Go with the tails option. We're not locked into doing the thing that we don't want to do, but this really helps us see what we actually truly want. What I've learned to be true is this. Not knowing what option to choose is a story we tell ourselves when we don't feel ready or worthy of what we want. Let me repeat that. Not knowing what option to choose is a story we tell ourselves when we don't feel ready or worthy of what we want. One of the magic questions I like to ask my coaching clients when they're stuck in indecision is this. If you did know what to do, if this could play out perfectly for you, how might it look? Taking this curious and playful approach is nothing short of magical when I see what happens with my clients. This is what happened with one of my clients, Jo. Jo was participating in a high-end training program for her business. After she completed the main curriculum, there were 2 options available to her to take what she'd learned in 2 different directions. The first option was for her to go deeper into the concepts and tools that she'd learned in the training. And the second option was to learn more strategic tools like marketing and sales to promote her business. Now, Jo could see the benefits of both options, and she was stuck in decision paralysis about which one to choose because she was so scared of choosing the wrong one. The indulgent emotions of fear and indecision were definitely at play here. When I asked Jo to tell me about times in her past when she had made a decision that today she viewed as wrong, she couldn't recall a single example. She said that sure, there were things that she might have thought were wrong or regretted in the short term, but looking back from now, from where she was today, these apparent wrong decisions or regretful decisions had had a profound impact on her and her life. She'd learned from them and they had become part of her unique story. And ironically, it was these stories of seemingly wrong decisions that connected her with the clients that she served in her business. Her clients were able to see themselves in her story, and they felt comforted and safe to work with her, knowing that Jo had been in similar situations to herself. Decision paralysis can feel crippling and overwhelming. But the way out is actually really simple. Not always easy, but elegantly simple. We just have to make a decision, one way or the other, then decide on purpose that this is the perfect decision for us. That's all for this week, guys. For updates, be sure and subscribe to my newsletter over at varilongmuir.com. And come follow me on Instagram. I'm at Vari Longmuir. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd love for you to come check out my private coaching service for artists and creatives. Maybe you're struggling to commit to just one of the hundreds of ideas you have, or perhaps your confidence has taken a bit of a dive after that epic fail. Regardless of what you're struggling with, a single coaching session can give you the focus and clarity you need to make the next right move for you. Head on over to varilongmuir.com/coaching for more information and to book your session.